Welcome to DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. In Curse of Strahd, there are 3 winery gems, also called gemstones, also called seeds, that the players can try and help them recover to the winery. One is in Yester Hill, one is in Berez, and one is just gone. So it's essentially up to the DM to decide where it is. And lots of different Curse of Strahd DMs do different things. And in this video, I want to talk through a few options plus what I did, where I managed to put the gem in 2 places. I'll explain later what I mean by that. So the lore about the 3 gemstones or gems or seeds is in the winery chapter, the Wizard of Wines Winery. And I might as well read what it says. The Wizard of Wines was founded by a mage whose name is buried in the annals of history. The wizard fashioned 3 magic gems, each one as big as a pine cone, and planted them in the rich valley soil. These seeds gave rise to healthy grapevines which produced sweet, plump grapes. Even after Strahd's curse settled over Barovia, the gems kept the vines and their grapes from succumbing to the darkness. And then later on it says, 10 years ago, one of the vineyard's magic gems was dug up and stolen, and as a result, the winery stopped producing its best vintage, the champagne. No one knows what happened to the gem. Big emphasis there, no one knows what happened to it. Davian Martikov blames his middle son Erwin for the loss because Erwin was on watch the night the gem was taken. Davian is convinced that Erwin shirked his duty to spend time with his betrothed, and the 2 men have been at odds ever since. To this day, Erwin steadfastly denies his father's accusations. Then it goes on to mention that Berez and Yester Hill are where the other 2 are, which disappeared more recently. One was 3 weeks ago, one was 5 days ago. So no one knows what happened to the gem, giving DMs the opportunity to put it where you want to put it. And this is actually confirmed by Chris Perkins, who is Curse of Strahd's lead designer. In a tweet, somebody asked him about it, and he goes, yeah, the whole reason we did this was so that people could make it their own and do their own thing with it. And naturally, there's been lots of chat on places like the Curse of Strahd subreddit and other places where people discuss where you could put it. I'm going to discuss a list of some of the common popular places people put it and maybe some of the lesser known places. And before I start, I want to give a shout out to MandyMod, whose post mentions a few of these. I actually devised most of this list, then checked MandyMod and saw that MandyMod covered them all. So I don't really think I just ripped off MandyMod. I came up with the list independently anyway, but I want to give her a shout out because her stuff's great anyway. The most popular one, as far as I can tell, is the Heart of Sorrow. So the idea being that when Strahd created the Heart of Sorrow, he used one of the winery gemstones in order to give it its power. And it makes a lot of sense. You know, it's how it's alive and exists. And it's an extra health pool for Strahd, and these gemstones apparently give life to things. So kind of ties in really nicely with that. I like the idea as well that when it's destroyed, this big red glowing crystal, this tiny green gem falls out, maybe all the way to the bottom of the tower, hundreds of feet below. Another option I've seen a lot of people say is Vasilka, the flesh golem in Krezg, the abbot's creation, the abbey in Krezg. And it makes a lot of sense that maybe the gem was used to bring her to life. This is a unique one I came across while researching this. Some people have had Argynvost, that's the dead dragon from Argynvost, be a Dracolich raised by Strahd. Now, I was familiar with the make Argynvost a Dracolich thing, and I actually at one point was going to make him a ghost dragon from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, but it's the first time I'd ever come across the idea that the green gem is responsible for that, so that's quite interesting. This one is an idea from somebody who commented on my Fated Allies Part 2 video. Their username is Lemeno Awai, if that's how that's pronounced, probably not. And what they did is they had it be in Piddlewick 2. And their justification was that's how Piddlewick 2 lives and operates, thanks to the gem. The PCs in that person's campaign had a dilemma because they really like Piddlewick 2. If they give the gem to the winery, Piddlewick 2 will die, essentially. Because Piddlewick 2 needs the gem to exist. I thought that was quite a cool, interesting thing. I saw somebody suggest the Shambling Mound in Death House, that it's inside that. I think I saw this suggested by more than one person, actually, maybe 2 or 3. I checked a lot of posts on the Curse of Strahd Reddit and other places. I like this idea, but is it introducing it way too early? You know, the Death House is done right at the beginning, and they leave the Death House with this green gem, and they're like, oh, what's this green gem? And so straight away, they can kind of give it to the Martikovs when they meet them and learn of it. And then they just need to worry about getting the Berez and Yester Hill ones then. And they're like, hey, you've got all 3 back. So I'm not sure about that one, but it's an interesting idea. This is a bit of an unusual one, but it's actually from Dragon Carter's Curse of Strahd Reloaded guide. The rock from Salenka Pass has it, because Madame Eva stole it 10 years ago, with the rock disguised as a regular raven, to keep it safe from Strahd, and it's tied to the whole Fanes lore, for those of you doing the Fanes, and for those of you following Dragon Carter's guide. So when I first read it, I was like, not sure about this one, but it's tied to a wider, bigger thing, and I don't know Reloaded inside and out, so if I had the fuller context, it makes sense that it's there. This is one of my favorites, and this is sort of what I did in the end, as I'll talk about later. It's inside Davian Martikov, helping him to stay alive. This is based on a Reddit post originally by Jaranesque called The Third Gem, Irwin's Greatest Secret. And it ties into the lore about Irwin being on watch that night, from the lore I read out earlier. The author says, in fact, he does know where the most powerful of the gems is. It's inside his father's chest. The story goes that they were both on duty, not just Irwin, but Davian died, maybe from an attack. And Irwin has the idea to put the gem inside his father to save his life, or bring him back. So he digs up the gem, puts it inside Davian's chest. Davian comes back from death, but with no memory of recent hours. And the author also says Irwin would not tell his father the truth, for he's so devoted to his vineyard and family that he would easily want to take that gem out and plant it again in the soil. And so father and son argued. Irwin saved his father's life just to stay away from him and his family. And he keeps that secret for himself. I love that. That's adorable. And he played out. It was so lovely. It was a lovely moment in our campaign when I did it. Is like that thing of like he kept his secret. He saved his life and he could never tell him, never told anyone. And he kept that to himself. And even, angered his father and couldn't tell him the reason why. And I just think that's wonderful. So what I did was I did two things. I had it inside Davian, but also inside Vasilica. How did I do that? Well, and I wrote it up on Reddit if you want to read more, and it's inspired by that Jaranesque post. But what I did was it essentially broke into two pieces, one larger, one smaller, and the smaller part was inside Davian, and the bigger part was in Vasilica. So the PCs find this all out when they get the Vasilica part of the gem first. It looks like an almost fully intact gem, but when they give it to Davian, Davian's looking at it, he's going, there's a chunk missing here. And they confront Irwin about it, and Irwin explains and spills the beans. So the idea being that when Irwin went to put it in his father, only a small bit broke off and was enough to bring his father back to life. And then Irwin, trying to cover his tracks, did actually put the larger piece back into the ground, but it soon went missing. Maybe a Strahd spy saw the whole thing and was like, I love that, thank you very much. And then it somehow ended up in the abbot's hands. It also justifies why Vasilica doesn't work, because the idea being that it wasn't the full green gem. Because in the lore for Vasilica, I think it says that the abbots tried really hard to get her to be a proper human lady, but it doesn't quite work out as hoped. And the idea being that it's not a full gem, it's like 80-90% of a gem. If he'd had the full gem, maybe he could have gotten Vasilica working the way the Vasilica should have worked and he wanted her to work. So it kind of, I thought, is good for explaining that, why Vasilica wasn't kind of coming out right. Next, I want to discuss some wildcard ideas. Some of these are ones I've seen, some of them are ones that I kind of came up with myself. Maybe the gem is outside Barovia. Maybe it was smuggled out by the Vistani. Maybe it's in another domain of dread. So your players can either go to it after Strahd's defeated, leave Barovia if you plan to do a sequel campaign after Curse of Strahd with the same players, level 10 plus or whatever, or they sojourn to another domain of dread, so long as they return to Barovia and can't just escape the domains of dread. Spoiler alert for the Heir of Strahd novel now. I'm going to give a bit of a pause just in case you can't hit the pause button straight away and you haven't read Heir of Strahd and you don't want this spoiled. In Heir of Strahd, they go to Lemordia and back from Barovia. So they're in Barovia, gets misted away into Barovia, and at one point they have to do a side quest to go to Lemordia, but they can't escape. So they do escape Barovia, but they don't escape it entirely. They have to go back to Barovia when they leave Lemordia. So they can't leave Lemordia to go anywhere else. It's Barovia, Lemordia, Barovia. So you could do something like that. Do a side quest if you want to do one of the other domains listed in Van Richten's guide. Add that to Curse of Strahd somehow and have the gem be there. Another wildcard suggestion for where the third gem could be, it could be nowhere. There's a Reddit post by a user called Alif Dala titled, I'm begging you, forget about the third gem. The author makes the point that sometimes campaigns are, and I quote, better off with some secrets and mysteries left behind. The third winery gem disappearing and never being mentioned again in the book, perfect the way it is. The author makes further points in reasoning in their post about why this is a good thing, that you shouldn't have the third gem at all. I'm not sure I fully agree, but I can see their point and it could be an option. It's easier for the DM, at least. You know, you've got one less gem to have to worry about. You just have the Berez and the Yester Hill ones. Third one's gone. No one knows where it is. No big deal. If you're unsure, maybe let the players take the lead. We know what players are like. They attach onto things. They hear about this missing gem. They're like, we got to find this missing gem. Like, forget Strahd, forget the Sunsword. Let's just find this missing gem. It's obviously very important. So if they don't seem interested in it at all, just forget about it. But if they do, maybe that's your cue to put it somewhere. Similarly, there was a comment on another post by a Reddit user called Chingy Legend. And they said, and I quote, I believe the third gem, aka Champagne de l'Estampe, should not be retrievable as to make the existence of the few bottles left rare and hence of extreme importance. For example, if Strahd offers them that at the dinner, it's like seen as a like really grand gesture of like there's only a few bottles of this vintage left ever. So that's an interesting thought as well. And that could be a way to it's interesting that person's interpretation was that that's the reason that they didn't do anything with the third gem and that the third gem isn't retrievable. As a bonus, 2 bonuses actually, I wanted to talk more about the gem, not so much where it is, but other stuff to consider. One of them I want to talk about is the gem's properties. For example, what if a PC tries to use it or attune to it? We're obviously getting into homebrew territory now, and you're well within your right to say it just doesn't work. It only serves the one specific purpose of helping the winery vines grow. But I have seen suggestions of it on various places where people have said it'd be quite cool if it casts very sort of plant type spells and druidic like spells, such as plant growth, awaken, entangle, grasping vine, wall of thorns, that kind of thing. Maybe just one casting per day, or as a magic item that uses charges. Another idea might be HP regeneration, but maybe something small so as not to be overpowered. For example, maybe just 2 hit points per round, not the 10 that vampire spawn have. And there's another bonus I want to talk about, the Martikovs reward. So the Martikovs, if they're given all 3 gems, they might be like, well, you've done a huge gesture to us. We've restored the winery back to what it was. What kind of reward would they offer for that? And the most obvious one is that they offer their Wayraven lycanthropy. In the lore, it says that they're very careful who they offer that to in case people use it for nefarious purposes. And you might be inclined to think, well, if they do find all 3 winery gems, I should let them do that. And this, what I did in my game is I said that they would only be given Wayraven lycanthropy if they found all 3 gems and defeated Strahd. Because if it's offered earlier, especially during the events of Curse of Strahd, before Strahd's been defeated, it may be overpowered. They could fly, they're immune to non-magical, non-silver damage if you're using the old version of the stat block, or HP regeneration if you use the amended stat block, which I think appeared in Van Richten's Guide in Candlekeep Mysteries. Oh, that's a big thing to give to a player. And in my game, 2 of my 3 PCs accepted the gift. And now balancing encounters is harder, and certain enemies are just pointless, such as zombies and skeletons. Well, they're a high enough level that zombies and skeletons have probably been pointless for a while. But you know what I mean? It has to be either magical damage or basically non-piercing, bludgeoning, slashing. And just makes my life slightly harder as the DM to actually hurt them and scare them, which is important in a horror campaign, I feel. Another idea, and this isn't in my notes, I literally just thought of it now, is that they give some sort of share of the winery, like you're co-owners now. That could be another thing as well. For, again, thinking of like a post-Strahd campaign. This is important as well. If you don't plan to do anything after Curse of Strahd, then forget me saying, oh, the whole they've got to defeat Strahd as well thing, because you might think, well, what's the point in them getting this amazing reward and then not being able to use it until after the campaign's ended? You may very well just think, well, it'd be cool if they can fly around as giant raven people for the final battle. What do you think? What did you do in your game? Or what will you do if you are currently preparing or running Curse of Strahd and haven't gotten this far? I'd love to hear your ideas. And I'd love to know how it went down. Upcoming videos, Curse of Strahd. I think I am going to do the Babala Saga video at some point. Just still getting that ready. I think I want to talk about tying in PC backstories. There's another one that's dropped out of my brain. Can't remember. There was another one I was going to do. Don't forget I do Ravenloft videos as well. I'm going to be doing How I Ran the Shadowlands Part 1 soon. Going to be doing Ravenloft Mist Hunters Part 2. And monsters from things like Modern Kane's Fiendish Folio and monsters of Drakkenheim that you could add to your Ravenloft game or Curse of Strahd game, potentially. I also have a membership. YouTube membership is kind of YouTube's answer to Patreon. And I'm doing more members-only videos. And I'm going to do a video where I talk about my Curse of Strahd PC from when I was a player of Curse of Strahd before DMing it, who was absolutely useless because I just didn't stat him very well. And I took some bad things like he had like a pointless language and a pointless tool proficiency, stuff like that. You know, I didn't build him very well. And going to be making more of those kinds of videos in the future, kind of more behind the scenes and more sort of light-hearted videos for those who want to see that. And there's a whole bunch of other perks as well. I'll include a link in the description to how to become a member, and there's like a little trailer video you can watch that explains everything you get by being a member of the channel. And we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.